So, dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope that yesterday evening was not too long or that the night was not too short, but I think that today's discussion, which we will have here, will be a very interesting one. So, really, therefore, I would like to welcome all of you in this room. And let me first say that it's my privilege to run this panel as the president of Slovenia's group, which is one of the biggest green tech company in Slovenia, and of course, as one of the three founders of the CER, which is today the biggest business community in the green tech, consisting more than 100 members with more than 30 billion of revenue, what are big numbers for Slovenia. It's my pleasure that today with me there are Dr. Saša Bavec, member of Executive Committee of Knauf Insulation Group, which is as well the partner of the event. Ms. Saša Božič, founder and CEO of Sophia Academy. Mr. Manfred Köhler, president of the World Infrastructure. Ms. Ruth Reichstein, the new Bauhaus initiative and advisory board to the president of European Commission. Mr. Thomson, Vice President of TOG, Hotel Management Company. And then Ms. Anja Zorko, Head of Center for Creativity, Museum of Architecture and Design. And last but not least, Urška Zupanec, Head of Unit for the Slovenian Presidency of the EU Council 2021 program from Ministry of Education, Science, Sport of Slovenia. But before we start the discussion and before I give the word to the panelists, I would just like to say that, 120 years ago, there were around 1.5 billion people living on this planet, that there were no cars on the street, there are no big ships at sea, and no planes in the air. And today, we are almost 8 billion, with 50,000 ships cruising around the world at the big seas, with 4,000 planes every second flying around. And, this is just to give you an example what kind of journey we made in these 100 years. And of course, I'm very sure that a similar kind of journey, maybe even faster, is ahead of us. And therefore, we are today already facing a lot of important questions. And among others, one is, how to save the planet in the way that many generations will still be able to live around here for a longer period. So in this way, we are all looking answers, regarding biodiversity and how we can cope in the post-COVID world. And this is getting a big necessity to get those answers, because any other discussion will be irrelevant if we will not answer to this one properly. So, in this time, when we search for solutions, it cannot be just one area or one continent. It might be a good practice, but will not be enough. It should be something on a global level. And it should go beyond environmental sustainability. It should go beyond energy efficiency, global working, and climate change. Because probably it's more about us here on this planet. Saying this, I would always stress out as well that we should not forget about the power of nature. Because if we will not sort this question, I'm sure that nature will sort it out. But I'm not sure if this will be good for us. Because at the end, we might not even be here anymore. But nature will remain. So European political leaders, having announced one of the biggest projects ever, and it's called Green Deal, which should lead the green recovery and become an example how we should transform our countries, businesses, and the way of living. One of those programs is called Fit for 55. The others are dealing with some other important issues regarding climate changes, regarding business recovery, and regarding the health and well-being of Europeans. So, with this opening introduction, I would just like to set some frames that it's not only about sustainability as we were talking or discussing a few years ago. It's not only about environmental issues, but it's about as well economical and social aspects. So, and my conclusion of this introduction would be, should it be the way that we put people first and save the planet, or should we first save the planet and with that saving the people? And I'm sure that we'll hear a lot of interesting discussion in this way, and therefore I would ask Dr. Bavec to share with us his view, and the view, I will call it the view from the business area, because Mr. Bavec is coming from a company which really puts a lot of effort in all kinds of the sustainability issues.
Okay, thank you, Gregor, for this question, I think, and for this nice introduction into the whole panel. I think, as you nicely mentioned, the nature was 120 years silently, to say, letting us do whatever we wanted to do on this planet. And I think in the last 10, 15 years, it's very loudly saying, probably stop. It's not this way, we cannot go anymore. And we see this through all these weather changes, the climate changes in terms of, I don't know, temperature rise, more severe storms, the hot, really warm, hot summers, and which results in the fire and so on. Nature was very loud. I think everybody on this planet is very much clear that we should do something, and that's why all these programs which governments are putting in place in terms of trying to reduce the CO2 emissions and other emissions which are impacting the rise of the temperatures, those things are now becoming more and more, say, present across the whole globe. And it's one thing. This is something what we now recognize, and I think nobody's anymore resisting that this is not necessary. On the other side, it's on economic sustainability, it's one thing. I think we got all a very big lesson in 2006, 2007, in these years of the crisis, just, 15 years ago, that if we are not acting and helping industry and helping economy to move after a big changes, that this might have a severe impact on the whole globe. And I think now everybody's reacting. If you see, we listened yesterday, European Commission put back behind 750 billion euros in the program of green recovery, which is supporting the economy, plus much more money coming also from the countries. We know that the US is doing the same and everybody's doing the same. So economy is not in question anymore. But here we come to the third part of sustainability. The United Nations are looking at sustainability, environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, social sustainability. And so back for the last 2 years, I think the world changed for everybody in this room, for everybody around this globe. I think we were exposed to something which we never saw before. Really impacted us in a way that we were ready to show up our also psychological vulnerability and isolation which happened, or this kind of change, how this influence our well-being and how do we feel. So I believe that all these green recovery programs, which are linked to the economic and environmental sustainability, are unfortunately very much a box-ticking exercises. Because as long as governments are putting money behind, we are running some programs and things are happening. When we look on the people side, on the social side, we're getting to a problem that you cannot just prescribe, oh, from now on, we'll all feel well. From now on, we will all behave differently. From now on, things have to change. This is something where people should, in principle, feel, each of us should start feeling this from our side first, that we want to make some change, and then this change can slowly go up. And I think also, looking now from industry point of view, also leaders there should decide that sustainability matters to them. We can do some tick boxes exercise, we can do some greenwashing, but as long as this sustainability is not becoming a kind of serious approach, which we all believe in the company to live and to do it not just for the sake of looking nice in the media and having a nice sustainability reports, but really that our people also believe that we are doing something good for the world, this is not going to fly. I think that the sustainability, even environmental sustainability, has no chance to really get to the point where it should be if people would not change and make a decision that they really want it. From our industry side, we see that we have to address these all three pillars. So we decided to put people first. So our sustainability program for a better world would be first, put health and safety of workers first, corporate social responsibility, diversity and inclusion. So we really deal with these things because we believe that this is the place that first maybe our employees, and then maybe also our customers and, let's say, the people who are using our products. On the other side, of course, we have our duty to future-proof our business in terms of less emissions, lower energy consumption, making products which are even more sustainable. And this is another part of our commitment. And of course, we have to the reduction of CO2 emissions. And on the other side, with the knowledge we have and experience and the development we are doing, we should contribute to also the environment in which people are living. So we believe that it's our duty that we improve also the quality of living, comfort of living, and improve the standards of the buildings in which we live to make them more sustainable and at the same time much more, say, user-friendly, people-friendly, so that people can really feel well and live a good life there. So from this point of view, I'm a strong believer that all three sustainability should go hand in hand. And my answer would be, let's start with the people first, because only if people will change and make a decision to go for sustainability and for the well-being, then things might go in the right direction.
Thank you very much for this very interesting and I would say very advanced view in the presentation how your company is thinking. And let me give now the floor to Ms. Saša, the founder and CEO of Sophia Academy, which deals exactly, I would say, with the things which Dr. Bavec ended with, and that's about people.
Yes, thank you, Gregor, and good morning to all of you. Because social sustainability, where Saša ended, is where Sophia Academy starts. And you know, before we step into the roles that we are playing in our everyday life, and basically the roles that brought you to your seat today, we are human beings, and this is where we start. So social sustainability is all about being sustainable toward yourself first. Because if you start acting sustainable and taking care of your well-being, the whole perception towards the world changes. And once you are aligned with what's really important and you feel well, you start taking sustainable actions and activities toward the world. And as Saša, you know, he also mentioned that within United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, we have 70 sustainable goals. And out of 17, they are equally spread, almost equally spread into 3 categories. So 1/3 is about social sustainability. It's about us as human beings. And I was really honored that since the COVID started, I was really actively involved with kind of a personal journey of almost 160 C-suites or, you know, board members, CEOs, to kind of support them on the journey through the different and the new reality that we've received with COVID. And I have to tell you that when we do find ourselves in a new reality, in a new situation that is totally out of our comfort zone, it's not our first priority to really act sustainable, because we need to survive first. So it's about just staying alive or finding our way to live from day to day. So how to do that, okay? How to, and we will show you, later on, we will show you the video with the initiative that Knauf Insulation, Zorko, and Sophia Academy started. It's called the Living with a Green Heart. So how can we start by being sustainable to ourselves in order to then become sustainable to others, but not making that as a black and white scenario, you know? You don't need to play the role 100% and then when you go to have that really well-deserved vacation to work on your well-being. How can we holistically approach to our well-being on a daily basis? How can we bring the green into the gray, right? How can we bring the green into the cities? How can the green recovery happen? How can it start? And it starts with our approach towards everyday life. We have this amazing video. I don't know, Gregor, when we are going to play the video, but you know, a picture says more, it's like 1,000 words. So I think that just anchoring you into the feeling, what do I mean with my message? Would it be okay if we show the video, or you wanted to do it later on?
Let's do the first round and then...
okay, so we'll do it later. But yeah, my message goes toward, take care for, you know, for yourself first and for your own well-being. And Gregor, you've made a great point saying, should we save the people first, or should we put the people first in order to save the earth, or vice versa? I just came back from Mexico. I spent my summer in Mexico doing some project and activities there. And just before I left, the Hurricane Grace hit. Exactly, I was in the eye of tornado, and I have to tell you, you know, the nature, as you were saying, Saša, nature will take care of herself. And it was the most amazing experience of anchoring how really small we are. You know, when the winds of 220 kilometers per hour hit, we're just a tiny ants on the planet, right? And so, yeah, it should start with us. Everything starts with us by taking the personal responsibility for the smallest actions you can do today. It does not need to be a revolution. It can be just a small decision of acting sustainable. But this comes and it starts with human behavior. That's why the social sustainability starts by you as a human being acting sustainable and just taking small steps, just by recycling, just giving a smile to your colleague. Do we smile to a clerk in a grocery store, or are we in a hamster wheel of, you know, I have so many things I have to accomplish today? And what would it be just to step a step back and just be human to human? And this is how I understand the social sustainability, and this is where Sophia Academy comes in. And I was really honored, and my colleagues were really honored that Knauf Insulation as a company had this strategic sustainability strategy of putting people first. So we were also part of that green human recovery, and it works miracles, I can assure you. So thank you.
Thank you, Saša. So from living with the green heart to the living with the green facade. Or maybe better, let's hear the view. I will call it a practical view from landscape architect and from landscape ecologist with really a lot of experience in regarding the green facades, with a lot of papers published and so on. So, and of course, among others, the president of the World Green Infrastructure, so Professor Dr. Manfred Köhler. What would be your view on the topic we are discussing today?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, and I will continue with Saša's words. People, decentralized steps are important, and this is the way we start in the 1980s, for example. I studied in Berlin, and we worked in the Institute of Ecology and tried to find the ecological values of green facades. You know, ivy growing by themselves for many years, and what kind of offers they bring for the people. And we make the measurements about how much pollution they will capture, how much the dust will they capture, what is the insulation value of an ivy, of a wine, and so on. And this was the beginning point in the 1980s, and these plants grow by themselves. And at that time, in Berlin, for example, there was also a starting program to bring in the ugly backyards from the World War II, very simple, renovated. Now they bring in vegetation. And there was a program in Germany, in nearly all cities, finally in the 1980s, to say the state offers the money for the plants and for the technical things, and the neighborhoods, the people should do it by themselves. And hundreds, thousands of square meter was renovated in this way. I think this was the first ecological, urban ecology wave we had in Germany. And the problem, of course, become more difficult at the moment. So in the 1980s, we was able to reduce the pollution with the big particles. Now we are on the ultrafine particles. What we find at the beginning was about 4% will be covered by vegetation on the walls. And now we are on the level of the very fine particles, which are unhealthy for your lung system and go inside the body, and we have find other solution for that. So greenery is one solution, of course. And in the combination with, we know that there was green roofs, for example, in the 1900s, in the 100-year-old structure, some architects find the solution that they say, oh, there was a big problem with fire if you have a coal burning oven heating, and this heat goes on the top, and the tar roofs will be burned, very inflammable, and put some sand on top. And what we did as ecological researcher, want to get numbers. What is the effect of this? Yeah? And then we compared the new green roofs here from companies everywhere in the world now produced, and the old only putting on top some soil. And we saw the difference that if you have new engineered systems, we have more biodiversity. We called it now biodiversity, more species coming. And we can connect the access to these roofs for people that they can use the layer on top of the building. And I think this is one of the most important points at the moment, that the ground cover in cities is so expensive. And in Hamburg, for example, there's a discussion. They make a nice harbor city, and there was a next area for the new housing development. And the people say, we want to have a park there. And the official people say, oh, we must build houses and so on. Why not the combination? The Hamburg people has a program, and 1/3 of all cities in Germany has a program to give some little bit money in the hand of investors to say, we support your idea, and then you can make the ground level for parking or business, and then some level of living, and on top a garden space. And in the 1980s, as we started with the green roofs, we want to make it very simple, because the lowest price was more important. And today we have another movement. These green roofs could have many functions. Yeah? They could have retaining water. They can bring some spaces for endangered plants, or we can make a garden on top. As I was sometimes here in Japan, and see they have very small square meter on the top of a technical building, and the people are happy to dig and plant, and you have some eatable things doing by themselves. It's not a question of money. They can buy in the shop, of course, but doing by themselves, this is the point. And all the time, I got the question as well, the new settlement, somewhere is the houses, yeah? If you make some greenery, it will be expensive for the high prices of the houses. But if you give these areas, the roof area with the spaces prepared for garden structure to the people who have this as a terrace, a green terrace, and mix the maintenance by themselves, we can reduce the maintenance cost of the house, and they have a garden structure nearby the apartment. And a lot of people like to have this. So we can do solutions. The Bauhaus movement, for example, to see Le Corbusier, so he started with this idea in the 1920s to say, on top of the houses we have a garden, and underneath we can pass through. And in between, from 1980 to today, there is a lot more technology coming up. All the solar technology, the rainwater technology, and so. I will call it a toolbox. We have a toolbox of opportunities. We must not do all the solution in one building, but we need a planner who know all these chances and can select. Yeah? So. This is a chance for today. We started the travel, I think, 100 years ago with the first unique projects in the 1980s. A lot of things, the first movement came there for renovation. And now we are discussing if we want to have more houses in the city center somewhere, how we can integrate greenery and more apartments with a good quality. And finally, what the people want as a need as an apartment are the same. They did not change from the 100 years ago to today. They want to have a good small apartment. They want to have a small private terrace or something. And if it's possible, somebody like to make garden work. Yeah? And this could be combined. Yeah? And the students of mine ask me sometimes the question, why you are starting with the biodiversity roofs only, not 20 or 30 years ago. In the first time, there was the question about the reduction of the cost and make it very simple. And if you have a roof with a lot of biodiversity, you need a gardener say, oh, I remove this plant and do that. And so we have different soils. And so we have opportunities. And Germany is, for example, leader in the square meter each year, about 10 million square meter green roofs each year. But the quality, 85% of these are extensive, I only see them, and 15% are roof gardens. And if you look in the history, we find that in the 1920s, for example, on the top of big houses in the cities, there was roof terraces for dancing and enjoying the life. In New York, they had something like that. And now we come back to the idea bringing roof gardens with a high quality on top. And it's not only, okay, we are focusing on vegetation, and the basic information, I will stop very soon, is that the evaporation cooling rate, what the plants offer, they evaporate water through the plants. This is a cooling air conditioning system. And you compare here, for example, this nice renovated hotel. It has a lot of features which go with the new topic of biophilic design, greenery and so on. But the air conditioning is also running in a conventional way. And we can looking for the old architects, Le Corbusier and other, they had a natural ventilation system in the house. We can reduce the energy demand and the wasting of energy. That means, this is a type how we can integrate vegetation as a cooling load. So the indoor greenery has the functionality for the rooms. Yeah? And if you cool a room like this, you have somewhere an outlet, and you heat up the neighbor. So I have a nice picture from some people in Singapore. He's standing on his terrace and say, oh, all my neighbors heat up my apartment because the outlet of the air conditioning go directly to his nice terrace. Okay, if you have pictures, I can bring this. This is, you must imagine how it looked like. And on the other side, we have a lot of technology solution in the construction area. And this is a very difficult to steer. We make a survey and evaluation of hospitals in Germany. We see that in most cases, air conditioning for cooling and heating runs in the same time. That means the temperature in the room is okay, but both machines are running in the same time. If you do it with natural ventilation also, you can save a lot of energy. And this is the point, there's a lot to do in future, and the greenery helps a little bit, yeah? And it is a stone. And the people like the greenery, and if you combine it with the eatable things, this is a new demand, and the people are happy to see, oh, I have my own cucumber or so. They're happy to harvest something. This is not for the full, for your full, what you need for today, but it just makes you personally really happy. And you have to integrate in the greenery persons. This is the point, and very nice to do. And we are at the beginning. I would say we have about 3% of green roofs at the moment in Germany. In some cases 8 to 15%, but we can have 50% of greenery. So it's a lot of space for a lot of companies and a lot of initiatives in the future. So far at the moment. And I only can say that our organization, I started with a square meter scale, what is happening with greenery in cities. And such movement with research are in many, many places in other places in the world. And our association combines about 27 national associations. The Chinese people are there, the American and so on. And we come somewhere and they have the same activities at the moment. And we can speak about the technology. Different are the plans and the architectural solution, but it's the same way. And so we have a basic, and if you discuss a Green Deal, we have the opportunity to say the greenery is one solution in the package. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But before I give the floor to our next panelist, who is really living with a green heart, as she just finished her run around the lake, observing the green Slovenia, I would just like to say that very soon, you will be all invited to give us your thoughts and your questions. And even before that, we will give you a bit of thinking by showing you a very interesting video. So I think the panel will become very interesting and very interactive. So, but now let's hear first the view from, let's say, European Commission and from European perspective, and maybe something about as well the Bauhaus initiative.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. I will not give you a lecture on the European Green Deal, neither on the European Bauhaus. Don't be afraid of that. And I would rather start with going back a bit to what my colleagues on the panel said before, and to the question that you were asking in the beginning: should we start with nature or should we start with people? And of course, very often we have to choose, but on this one, at least the President of the Commission would rather say, let's not choose, but let's try to do the two at the same time, also because you cannot really separate them. And I think that was already, I mean, you could already feel this in what you said before. If we as individuals are not ready to change our behavior in certain areas, we will not save nature. At the same time, of course, also it's the responsibility of politics and politicians to put the right framework in place, that it becomes easier for people and also for business to make certain choices. Because, I mean, probably for the most of us sitting in this room, we can choose if we buy organic food or not. We can afford to switch to an electric cars. We can renovate our house or invest in whatever green technology. But a lot of people cannot, just because they don't have the means. That was you, Saša, said before. I mean, we also need to survive. So I think for the European Commission, and especially the President, it's very clear that green and social have to go together, and that is also why, for example, in this famous package that the Commission put on the table in July, with a lot of measures around climate and nature protection, and very, let's say, technical regulation, going from new CO2 standards for cars to energy efficiency standards for buildings and others. There's also one new element, which is a social climate fund. Because if we raise the price for CO2, which we have to do to save our nature, we also have to give the means to the people to be able to change their daily lives. Because also, I mean, you were already talking about the costs of buildings, and it's very clear. I mean, if the CO2 becomes more expensive, driving a car becomes more expensive. If you don't have the opportunity to switch to an electric car, what do? Well, you have to pay more. And this is why it's very important for us to combine both, to combine the social and the green, and not just to go into one direction and forget about the other. And this is where I want to quickly come to the European Bauhaus initiative, which is an initiative that President von der Leyen launched almost now a year ago, and where we try to combine both and even add a third element, which is also not, which is not so usual in politics, let's say. The European Bauhaus has as a guiding star a triangle. The first element is sustainability in the green sense, if you want so. The second element is affordability or inclusiveness, which then would be translated in a way in the social sustainability. But then the third one is aesthetics. Or even beauty, if you want so, which is something that normally we don't talk about much in politics. But this is also very much linked to the well-being of people. If you have social housing, for example, and you renovate it and you make it more energy efficient, but it's completely ugly and people don't feel well in the building, well, this has an impact not only on their lives, but also, of course, on their behavior in society and so on. So for us, it was important, and for the president, it was important to add this dimension of beauty, of creativity, of art and culture to this Green Deal, also to make it more tangible and more positive for people. Because we all know, and I'm sure we will hear more about it later, that art and culture is something where people can relate to and which is in their daily lives, be it in movies, be it in sculptures, be it in music and whatsoever, but it is important for all of us, and it's also where we find our own identity. So this is what we try to combine in this project. It first sounds pretty abstract, I admit, and it's even still difficult to talk about it because the other very important element for the president was that she wanted to have it as a participatory project. So she did not put a whole concept on the table a year ago, but she said, okay, that's the vision. Now people tell us what you want to do with this project. What is important? What are the challenges we should address? What are the needs that you are having? So we had now a so-called design phase where we really had a lot of contributions from all over Europe. There were also several events, for example, here in Slovenia, where the conversations were happening, where we brought people together, business, art. That is also why it's so nice to have this panel today, where we have really people from all kinds of institutions and backgrounds, science, students, the next generation, to talk together how this lifestyle could look like, which you can do in an easier way in a little entity like a company, but that is of course much more complicated when you do it in so different societies as we have them, as we are having them in Europe. And there was also a strong, so a lot of things were expressed. I would only want to mention one, that was a reconnection to nature. And this also goes a lot back to what you said before. There is a real need from people to be reconnected to nature. That can be more green spaces in the cities, that can be community gardens, but also this, when you look at, and I learned a lot in this last year because I'm not an architect and I'm not coming from the construction sector, I have no clue about all these things, but when you look at maps, and you look at the corridors that we are having, you so see that everything is disconnected. You don't, I mean, animals cannot move anymore, but also we as human beings, we are completely disconnected from nature. I think probably in Slovenia a bit less than in other countries, but this is something that people expressed a lot. So what we will do now is that we will have in actually 2 weeks' time a document adopted by the Commission, which is called in the EU speak a communication, where the Commission will say what we will really do with this Bauhaus, also linked to a lot of funding possibilities. So where there will be calls for first pilot projects in the member states. Also one, for example, especially for social housing, which again tries to combine these different dimensions, and where we want to continue with this growing community to work on thinking about but also developing concrete solutions for this new kind of living that protects the planet, but at the same time it takes into account the well-being and also the needs of the people. And the good thing is, and we heard that already a lot at the panel, that the solutions are there. There are solutions in all sectors, in the construction sector, but also, for example, in the fashion sector. We have a lot of interest there that they want to become more sustainable, and they want to also there combine sustainability and beauty. You know, you can have cool clothes, but that are still sustainable in the social and also the environmental way. So this is what we try to do with the Bauhaus, and I can only invite all of you to participate and have a look. And as I said, in the 14th of September, we will have this communication with also calls for organizations on different levels to participate in this project. Thank you very much.
So it was great to hear that the European Union is doing really a lot in this area, but it would be very interesting as well to hear how they are dealing with this in some other parts of the world. So Thomson, could you tell us, let's say, how the view from the Gulf area is, and especially from the business point, from one of the very interesting industry, which is the hospitality?
Great, thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be here today, and I'm glad you said why I was here, because, you know, being in a European Strategic Forum would be a bit odd coming from Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. But I think really, at the end of the day, what the UAE offers, being, you know, one of the biggest oil producers, is a message of hope when it comes to the environment. You know, very early on, I mean, it's a very young country, it's 50 years old, so it hasn't been around very long. We celebrate 50 years this year, actually. And I'm glad to say I've been there for 30 of those years, so I've got a very good handle on the country. And what they have done in the last few years, they've woken up to, obviously, their impact on the environment. We're a desert environment. Everything we do, obviously, impacts on the environment, and there's a real responsibility to turn that around. And so Dubai has been very, very active. It's got massive green initiatives. It's not only got, obviously, a climate change and environment ministry, it actually has, when we're talking about the involvement of people, a ministry of happiness. And, you know, Dubai's aim is to make Dubai the happiest city on earth, which, you know, sounds like a cliche, because obviously it is very close to being one, but it's a real thing. It's something that they really want to, you know, they want people to enjoy their lives, have a fantastic quality of life. And, you know, that all comes down to initiatives around being green and sustainability, because without it, you can't have happiness amongst people. And reconnection with the environment that we live in is really very important, and it's something that Dubai has striven. I talk about Dubai because obviously it is the United Arab Emirates, but I mean, you know, we have 200 kilometers of cycle track. We have more parks than most cities. We have a commitment by 2030 to have 60% of Dubai's land to be handed over to either natural development or to nature reserve. So there's a real commitment from Dubai to going forward. It's set by 2030. They want 75% of their energy to be green energy, and 70% reduction in carbon emissions at the moment, 30% reduction in the amount of water they're using, and 30% reduction in the amount of power. And all of this is, you know, these are huge commitments, and they're very, very measurable. The Dubai Lands Department, obviously Dubai is known for massive construction, as you all know. And the Dubai Lands Department has introduced a sustainability program, which is very real. You cannot build buildings in Dubai now without showing how they're sustainable. I come from the first group, which is a tremendous property developer. We've done 12 major developments in Dubai now, of which part of those hotels, which is where I come in. But everything we do, again, is based on being as sustainable as possible when building. We are actually in the process of building the world's tallest hotel, which will be the 6th in Dubai. But it's, you know, that is all done with material that's locally sourced. Everything we do in terms of whether it's fresh air units, because as you know, air conditioning is massively important in Dubai. You know, all the water from the condensation water from that is being recycled into irrigation. We're going to have more than 100 trees in the building. Our sewage treatment works actually in the building will again be recycling the water there. So from a development perspective, we're very, very in tune with what the needs are of the community and the responsibility we have towards, you know, the society in the whole. But it's not only just about being green and putting in green walls, and we are working with Knauf Industries as well around that. And as you know, I think Knauf has worked in Dubai in terms of the Dubai Opera House, and is continuing to work in Dubai with the Slovenian Pavilion, because obviously we have Expo coming up, which starts on the 1st of October. Again, the whole of the Expo is around sustainability, and that is the strong message, you know, again, a message of hope for the future of the planet, and what sort of technological developments there are, and showcasing those in terms of how how the world can change in terms of becoming more green and more sustainable. And the Slovenian Pavilion is fantastic. I mean, you know, for those of you that are coming to Dubai for Expo, you know, it's got the green wall. The whole building is actually a green building. It's, you know, it's actually got an environmental already set up with plants growing on the outside of the building. We've got birds nesting in there. You know, it is a genuine, sustainable building, you know, and part of living with a green heart, which is great. But also from the tourism point of view, I think as you know, I run hotels, you know, the first group have developed, and we have a massive responsibility in the hotel industry. We're obviously, all of you in here are staying in a hotel, I'm sure, at the moment. Everybody, you know, not everybody, but you know, so probably 70% of the planet goes and stays in hotels at one point or another. And what you're seeing at the moment within the hotel industry is, you know, yes, okay, you know, if you don't want your towels to be changed, you can hang them up, and if you know, you'll put them in the bath if you do. And there's some, you know, some very minor changes that are moving in the hotel industry, and you're seeing this. But, you know, considering we have the opportunity to educate people who come and stay with us, I think you know, it's a missed opportunity. And one of the things that we've done in our properties in Dubai is, you know, we actually run on behalf of other companies. So at the moment we have some Wyndham properties, Millenniums, Marriott's going forward. And so what we are doing at the moment is we've introduced something called Love, which is Love Your Vibrant Earth. And, you know, everything we are doing in our hotels, we are the first properties not to have any plastic in our hotels. So we have water bottle in conjunction with a company called No More Bottles. We actually we have our own bottling plants within our hotels. So it's all glass bottles, which, you know, we haven't been able to source locally yet, but you know, we obviously have been reused. All our tissue paper, napkins, toilet rolls, etc., are all from locally recycled cardboard. All the chemicals we use are as green and as friendly as possible. And all our lighting is UV lighting, and so everything we do, and we have, you know, the highest sort of energy control in the rooms when you leave the room in terms of, you know, the monitoring people and movement in a room and cutting down the emissions and the use of air conditioning, etc., etc. So everything we do, you know, is trying to, and we don't just do it, we talk about it, you know, so do good and shout about it is really our philosophy. So, because we want to just educate people that everyone can do something. But I think what Dubai and the UAE generally shows is that, you know, governments have to be involved. And they are, you know, I appreciate that there is a cost, you know, and that has to be, you know, you can't expect everybody to go green and drive around in green cars because it's more expensive. So that has to be supported financially. There's no question about it. But Dubai has sort of done both. So it's saying this, we'll support you and we'll encourage you to reduce your emissions and to hit these targets, but we're also going to force you to do it to some extent. So, you know, if you want to build a building, you have to pass all the Dubai municipalities' sustainable regulations. If you know, now the DTCM, Dubai Tourism, has introduced, you know, again, the green way, sustainable tourism, and hotels have got 12 months to shift across into doing very largely what we're already doing in our properties, not quite to that extent, but certainly in terms of making sure that, you know, they've set up an educational panel where hoteliers can find out about how to reduce their emissions, how they can make sure that everything they do in terms of ethically sourcing food is done to have the least impact on the planet. And I think, you know, this is something that people will not be able to get registered if they haven't done. So you won't be able to have your hotel registered within Dubai if you're not now introducing these green initiatives. And I think, you know, this is where governments have a role to play. You know, we can't just expect everybody to turn the tap off when they're brushing their teeth and, you know, switch the lights off when they leave the room. That's not going to do it. You know, there has to be, governments have to step forward and say, you know, we're drawing the line here. There will be no non-recyclable plastic used in future. You know, you cannot, in terms of emissions from petrochemicals, we have to stop doing that. I mean, that UN report, you know, which was code red for the planet, if we don't actually set up and take notice of that now, when are we going to do it? Because, you know, we've seen what's happening with nature and climate change. And I'm not sure I agree that nature's going to be the one that wins on this particular battle. If we don't change, you know, we are going to have the people that are going to be around at the end, or the species that's going to be surviving at the end is going to be us. Everything else is going to be damaged first. And that's why we've got to stop. And, you know, we all have a responsibility. And I am very proud of the fact that the United Arab Emirates is doing so much, you know, in terms of the environment. I'm very proud that I'm part of a company in the first group, which is also very, very focused on environmental issues. And I think it's a responsibility of us all. So I'm delighted to be here to share what we're doing. And I look forward to, and I work very closely, by the way, with the two Sašas. So, and I'm, you know, part of the Sophia Academy as a coach. So, you know, I also have a very green heart. So, and it's great to be part of this today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. So from your green heart to a creative heart. So.
Thank you. Also warm welcome and thanks from my side. I'm really happy to be at a panel that somehow sums up also the idea of a European Commission about how to tackle the problems that we are facing, how to tackle the future in a more sustainable way, not only green way, but more sustainable way thinking and development. And which is also something that our institution, where I come from, Museum of Architecture and Design and Center for Creativity in Ljubljana, Slovenia, is dealing with. 10 years ago, probably, we as a public institution started to ask ourselves, what can we do to face the problems and the challenges that our society has, and also the problems and the challenges that creatives has within this development, within this changed reality, when the industry that we used to know is no longer existing and is changing rapidly due to digitalization and so on. How we are affecting our environment is changing the way we live, and not to mention what COVID now brought to our lives. So we said that as a public institution that is funded by public funding, we should not merely present what is happening also in our environment or in our cultural sphere, but that we could and can act as agents of change, that we can also somehow develop the platforms, the initiatives that bring people together from different fields, not only creatives, that are trying to tackle important issues, from the environmental issues, social issues, and so on, where creatives, together with other scientists, other experts from different fields, can react to those problems and those challenges in a creative way. Not only in a way to deal or develop new products or services, but also to somehow propose new solutions, new ideas, how to deal with in our future. We decided to change one of our very traditional biennials of the design exhibition of classical industrial design into a platform where we invited young creatives and architects, designers, businesses from public, organization from public and private sector, from NGOs and so on, to work together on the challenges that we had. And it actually developed into a big knowledge platform that offers creatives solutions, and it's somehow showing what the challenges of our society are and what the solution, practical solution, could be while working together. This is just one project that we are developing. We also have another project which is called Future Architecture Platform, and it combines creatives from architectural field that are suggesting, imposing, or somehow speculating the ideas of the city, how the city could develop, and proposing this to our society, to our institutions, but also to European Union. So I think that's also a part what we as individuals or institutions can do, is somehow to give a little bit of input and action into the questions that we are facing now, and really try to think how we can work together, not as in silos, which we are so used to, but as a community that has to face similar problems. So.
Thank you very much. So we heard how European Union is thinking. We heard what some people are doing in some other parts of the world. Now I would like to ask Urška Zupanec, how is Slovenian government looking on all these things in the country, which is really green? I mean, I was just having a discussion before with David, and he said, I heard that Slovenia is covered by forest by 66%. And it's true, it's one of the most green countries regarding the forest. But you remind me when you said, you know, Dubai has a ministry for happiness. There is only one country which has more forest than Slovenia, and it's covered by 70%. It's Finland, and it's assumed to be the happiest nation in the world. So maybe there is some correlation. But Ms. Urška Zupanec, how is the view of Slovene government?
Okay. Thank you for the question, and I'm really glad to be here today with all of you. Hello to everybody. I'm here as head of the subgroup for the program of the Slovenian Presidency to the Council of the EU in the areas of education, research, and sports and youth. So I can't speak for the whole of the Slovenian government. Obviously, I'm more confined to these areas. But nevertheless, I would first like to perhaps answer your first question on, you know, what should we focus on? Should it be, should we put people first, or should we actually put the planet first? And I have to agree with Ruth here. I think it's sort of a false question, really. It's a false choice, because if we don't take care of the planet, then we won't be able to take care of the people. We are all interconnected with the planet. My view is actually that it's the well-being that we should put in the center of all of our actions, also on the political level. It should be well-being of people and of the planet, which is, of course, part of the well-being of the people. Because if we don't have an environment which is, which makes a good environment to live in without the extreme weather and so on, it's not any choice, really. So what is well-being? For me, it's, we've heard this word today a lot, happiness. Not the feeling of happiness, not the emotion, but, you know, being a fulfilled individual. It's safety. It should be the first one, I think, yes. We need to feel safe to have well-being. Health, of course, is also here. And if the actions, if the policies of the government go in this direction to, you know, take care of the well-being of people, I think that the green recovery is in this package already. So perhaps now I will focus a little bit on what we are doing in our presidency program, in our priorities, as far as the green transition is concerned. It's the area of education, of course, is very important here. And we are expecting a proposal from the Commission in the end of the year on the sustainable education. And we will have our ministers of education discuss this topic, because it's obviously, as you said, education is important from, on the one hand, in raising the awareness of the people, but also we need to educate, people who will hold the new green jobs that we want to create. We need to also create the competence framework for that. So this is one aspect, but the other is, of course, the education infrastructure, which should become greener and I hope also more beautiful in accordance with the new European Bauhaus initiative. But also research is very crucial here because in order to first understand the climate change, we need research, and I think that researchers have shown us that we really need to change our way of living because the temperatures are rising and the climate models show with, I think, increasing accuracy what will happen if the temperatures raise by half a degree Celsius, 1 degree, 1.5 or 2 degrees, and the consequences would be catastrophic. And we've had a taste of this in this summer in Europe, I think. But then again, research and innovation are there to offer innovative solutions. And this is also another area where we can actually, innovation and research can help in climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation. I would, perhaps it's not, so much the green deal, the green transition, but in the whole well-being aspect, I would also like to mention the area of sport, where we heard yesterday Mr. Thomas Bach from the president of the International Olympic Committee really advocate strongly for the European model of sport. And I think it's one of the priorities of the Slovenian presidency of the Council of EU, and it can contribute so much to social cohesion, to the health of the people. We really are very much behind that. And also the field of youth, of course, we've had this Bled Strategic Forum is dedicated to the future of Europe. There is no future of Europe without youth. This is their future, actually, that we are talking about, and they should be included. And we will hold a conference, a European Youth Conference, which will also include, by the way, participants from the Western Balkans, because, yes, Europe is also Western Balkans, as we've heard yesterday. It's not the EU yet, but it is Europe. I would just like to perhaps finish with the thought that we also need a really holistic approach. What we've heard, yes, we need bottom-up initiatives, and we need, awareness on the individual level, turning off the tap water when you brush the teeth and so on, but it's not enough. We need systemic changes too. We need bold political decisions. I think that we will do our best, at least, as the presidency of the Council of the EU, to contribute to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this interesting view. And, there's one thought which came to my mind is that I'm living in a really great country, very green, very sportive, and people are happy and are coming here and we all enjoy. So it's my intention to include the audience into this discussion, because I think that to hear different views on this issue is very interesting. But let me first ask the technician to show us the video which our colleagues prepared, and it's about the decisions to make, and it's about our choice, which way we want to go. So if we are ready, I would just ask to show us the video.
Morning time, and the first light of dawn. Do you sense it? The awakening, as we are gently bathed in the sun's rays. Do you notice them? The first steps we take towards the day ahead. Are they calm or anxious? And who gets to decide how we begin a brand new day? Who else if not us? Deep breaths and hearty laughs, a racing heart and anxious unrest, yes? Who gets to decide if not us? For our own good and the good of the world we live in, of the world that needs us, each and every one of us. It needs our actions and our reactions to survive. For us to survive with friendliness a feature of our everyday lives, where sustainable products and solutions are right at hand, designed and produced in the very place we live, exist, and are. A part of the environment in which we share the same pulse, the beat of a green heart. A heart that unifies, that connects the world around us with our inner essence, that highlights and amplifies that which is a part of us all, that connects tradition with the modern day, the present with the future, the current moment with sustainability, sustainability with existence, existence with an open ear and keen awareness, an awareness with coexistence. Let's make the decision for us. Join the beat of a green heart. green-heart.si.
So I guess all the remarks and as well this video open some questions. So therefore, I would just ask if there is among the audience any other additional remark or question for our panelists. So it looks that the thoughts are still deep from the video. We are still there, but then I will come. Sorry? We have one question. Sorry, I overseen. You can just stand up and tell it without microphone.
Thank you for your great inputs to this panel. It was very mind-provoking. My name is Matej Nikšić. I'm from the Urban Planning Institute of the Republic of Slovenia. And I'm in practice for more than 20 years now. And from the start of my career, we are listening to these great strategies and great solutions that will bring us to a better future and so on. On the other hand, all the empirical research and the statistics is very crude. The fact and brutality are really putting us down to earth on the other side. Just to mention, maybe this video I looked at now, it's a great message, but for example, how can an average citizen can relate to it? For example, I saw this nice image of a great house, very green, very nice to live in, but we know today the young families cannot even afford to buy a very pure, very basic flat. What I'm trying to say is that all the strategies that we're trying to set up and are all well and going to the right direction, then face the reality on the other side. And I believe that the normal citizen of Slovenia, or I believe of the majority of the countries in this globe, can hardly relate to these high aspirations while not having the means to really lead their lives towards these aspirations. I also refer to Mr. Köhler's input. I think this greening of the build structure is really important and it's really must to follow. On the other hand, when you come to the reality of the, for example, very concrete urban planning, the cities are being more and more densified because Mrs. Reichstein mentioned, for example, the green systems are falling apart. Because we are also using these green strategies to say, okay, we green the buildings, green the roofs. On the other hand, the floor space ratio is lowered. More and more cities are more and more intensively built up. And I really see a mismatch between the strategic planning and what's going on in reality. In reality, some sectors are doing a great job, but it's not a comprehensive approach. And this is really not leading us to the direction we are trying to go.
Okay.
I wonder what are the responses of the respective things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we heard, let's say, a bit critical point. Maybe we can say that we are not there yet. We are still in the planning phase. But I would like to hear if anybody can add something to these thoughts.
Maybe if I can start just about the message, and thank you, seriously, thank you for your opinion. The message of the Living with a Green Heart, it's about mindset. We, of course, play different roles in this, actor of what we call life, but it's about the mindset, it's about the choice, right? And why I took this within my message, why I took it on the personal, individual level. And as you, Urška, said, right, it's not enough. We need governments. But what is government, We sometimes depersonalize or we detach from those institutions. But if you go into the parliament and you ask people to come out, what's the government? It's just an empty building. So it's us, even the government. It's made up of individuals that we've put our trust in to be our representatives. So if that individual is living with a mindset of I have a choice of combining on a daily basis my role with all the responsibility to what I have to do with this in my life, in my profession, with my healthy approach to being a healthy human being and human to human on a very basic and honest level, then I will also do my work and my profession with passion. And you can notice a difference. If there is somebody that's sitting and holding a chair for 4 years, I have to do what I have to do. I'm just gonna follow, and hopefully at the end of the day, there's gonna be something for me out of it. Or this person is fully conscious that he's making a change for the future generations. And this is what the message is all about. Of course, there are differences within the social status. But I worked in India for 5 years, and I can tell you, we are all about let's help the countries of the third world. As happy as those people are in the slums, you don't see us that happy. So who needs to save who? So the basis is, I know it's really simplified, but this is where it starts. It starts with our action, our call. Do I have a mission and what I can do to contribute? Even if it's just, it can be really small, right? So, yeah, just to answer the message.
Yeah, we have a couple of more replies. So maybe start with Ruth. You asked first, and then we continue with Mr. Manfred.
Thank you. I will not add much. I completely agree with you, and you see on political level as well that it's also about choices and individuals, because it depends a lot who, in the end, is at the head of a government or an institution and what change you will get. But at the same time, I think you also need certain structures that can help, and both go together. And without now overemphasizing this new project, and we don't know yet how it will work, but as you come from an urban planning and as the European Bauhaus is also very much about this kind of environment, what we try to do is also to reconnect politics with the people in a very concrete way, meaning that we really try now to bring communities together where you have the people who are working on the ground and who can tell, look, this regulation drives us crazy because it, for example, doesn't make it possible to have green roofs. I invent now things, but and that we can then say, okay, what can we change as European Commission? What can we ask the member states to do? And we will engage with the member states to see what needs to be done. Sometimes it's even on a lower level. It can be regional or local, that there are certain things in place that don't work. And so really try to have all kind of levels. And we are very happy to see that there's a lot of interest from architects, but also, for example, from urban planners and others, to really engage in a kind of dialogue. So that is also why we don't want to like decide now, okay, we have to change regulation X, or we need to have projects whatsoever in place, that we want to do that together with those who actually know what we are talking about, because we are, of course, not the specialists. So this is just one small example of structure where I think this is also something that we need, and where politics, but also business and other institutions, let's say, of the society can play a role to try to change things together with then very engaged individuals that we, of course, need as well.
Thank you. Manfred, you wanted?
Yes, thank you. As answer is correct, it's property costs are very high, and there must be a little bit support by financing. And this is the point where some incentives coming into the game on national level and the EU level at the moment. And I think we can learn from the initiatives in the 1980s. So we called in German the eco-settlements. There's more than 100 projects together where persons started by their own creativity and do something. And we did sometimes a survey about the success of these groups here. In the 1985, there was in Berlin a green exhibition, and they built houses. They asked the architects, what is your answer to eco-settlements? So 5 different architects built something, and we asked the people who live inside, and they was really happy. The point of happiness with the eco-features. The architect thought they should produce their own vegetables, and so this was not in reality, because our prices of vegetables are very low at the moment, and you have to do the business somewhere else, but the opportunity is there. And at the moment, if you think about that, to integrate the people in these projects, I will say in German it's Genossenschaft, a type of association, that's the ownership of the property is together, and they share the duties of that. They do something by themselves, as well as the maintenance of these areas. And there are some people who are not able to do this. We have the example, for example, in Munich, Wagnis 4 is a project. They got an award for the best solution between people and reducing the housing costs in Munich. Yeah? And they have a long list of interested people. So they started the next Wagnis project, where they start again with a group. And this is the point. But we need a little bit seed money from the state or for the government. And finally, that this will be successful, we can see at the example of Singapore, for example, they have a small area with a lot of crowding and density, and they say, the official politics is there to say, if we make this everything green, we can rise up the 4 million inhabitant city to 6 million, but it's necessary to do it with greenery, that the people have a small balcony, or they look out their windows on the greenery, and down under this greenery there's always a shopping mall or something else, so they have a compact city and they bring vegetation wherever it's possible. And I think that we need creative solutions by architects and find new solutions. The 1980s is not the point that we have to copy now, because we have a lot of more technologies at the moment, but this mixture makes it. And of course, we need a support by financing. And the money is there for the moment to say we must help the people that they have an apartment with the quality.
So it looks that there is will, there are tools, but we have 2 more opinions to hear. So from Anja, Urška, and I see David as well.
I think it's a good question you raised, because I agree there's a big discrepancy between the strategy and reality often, and I also believe in what the new Bauhaus in a way is initiating or doing, that we should change the way we work as well as the way we think, in a sense that the co-creation, which is so close to art sector as well, to creativity, should be used also in a decision making and policies. So you cannot make a strategy if you're not there on the ground facing what people really need. And if you are making decision, if the suggestions come from the citizens, which should be included, not only experts, not only businesses, but also people living on the ground facing the problems, should fit into the strategy and the separate actions. But then again, on the other hand, as our environment is changing so quickly, the strategy should not last for I don't know how long, but it should be again re-evaluated and changed and adopted again and again. So it should be like quick process and more responsive than it is now, when it takes really long time that we make changes. So.
Thank you. Another view.
Okay, thank you. I would like to really react to something that Saša said, that also decision makers are people, and you know that it is their mindset is important. But you know, for the ordinary man in the street, their mindset is more important for them, and they make a small contribution to changing the way we live, whilst decision makers really can make massive changes. If you look, for example, I'll give an example from education. You know that in Slovenia was in the 18th century part of the Habsburg Empire, and it was at that time that mandatory education was introduced by Maria Theresa. And if she had held, you know, a conference on the future of the Habsburg Empire then, and asked the people, do you want you know, obligatory education? I'm not sure that the answer would have been yes. Had she asked them, however, do you want a better quality of life? Do you want progress? I think that in that case, the answer would have been yes. And I think that the decision makers really need to ask the right questions, but also have the courage to take the decisions that will not, perhaps in the short term, bring them, you know, significant results in polls. So, yes.
Great thoughts. But I saw, David, as well, that you would like to add something to this interesting theme.
Sure, and actually it's really just to reiterate what Urška's just said, and Saša, it is all about mindset. You know, I can assure you, you're absolutely right. You know, this isn't something that can be done really at a grassroots level. People can't afford to do the things that need to be done. That is for sure. But again, taking the example of the UAE, I mean, the people in charge now are the same people that were in charge 30 years ago when it was all about getting as much oil out of the ground as possible. And now their mindset has changed. You know, they're still getting as much oil out of the ground as possible, but at the same time, they've realized the impact that is having on the world and on their own environment. And so they're making massive changes to do that, and they're implementing those changes from the top down. And so when you see a video like this, yes, you're right, to some people this is going to mean absolutely nothing. But hopefully for the people that do have the right to make decisions, that can trickle this down from the top, or not trickle this down, torrent this down actually from the top, because trickling, we're way past having to trickle anything. We've really got this has got to come down from the top and come down fast. And hopefully something like this is going to make a difference to them. And they'll realize the importance of actually reconnecting everybody with nature and not just a few of us. So I think, yeah, I think mindset is the key, and targeting the people that can make a difference is the key. You know, because it's up to governments now to do that and not leave it to the individual. So. Thank you.
We saw that the right question can have at least 7 answers. Our time is slowly running out, but we will still take one short question, and then try to do the wrap up. So I see that. Thank you very much. So we have some answer to this as well. So therefore, I would ask Saša.
Yeah, maybe to answer to this one and a little bit giving also on the previous question, a little bit comment. I had one of the reasons for this Green Heart initiative was that we felt, or I felt a lot, that our society is very much profit driven. So we do things which brings profit. And that's why big scale programs are much more interested than the small rural houses which are needing exactly the same need as the big multi-story houses in the city.